you guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Carly. I am a labor and postpartum doula, and I create content here on my channel all about pregnancy and labor and motherhood and pretty much everything that falls in between. And it is my passion to support, empower, and educate pregnant people so that they can have the birthing experience that they deserve. And this is the second part in a two-part video that I created all about how to naturally induce labor. Now, if you haven't seen part one, I will link it right here so you can go and check it out if you want to give it a watch before this one. But we are going to continue to dive into some of my top tips for how to naturally induce labor at home on your own and get into labor. If you haven't seen that video yet, I highly recommend going to watch that one first because I go over a lot of really helpful information about hormones and how labor starts on its own and just some things that you might want to know before you kind of start diving into what you need to do. It's really important to understand how things work. So click off this video for a second, go watch that one, and then come back and watch part two. If you aren't new to my channel, you notice that I'm in a little bit of a different space. I'm in Wilder's room right now because it is thunderstorming right now and I have no light except for this window right here. So I am gonna have a seat in this room and we're gonna go over the rest of my tips for how to induce labor on your own. If you haven't seen part one yet, then you might not know that I am also doing a giveaway. I am super excited to give away this little bundle I have put together in collaboration with this video. I'm giving away a little bundle for someone to win, and the giveaway is running for one more week after this video is posted. And it is super simple to enter. All you have to do is go watch part one, and I give all the details in that video. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the last 5 tips for how to naturally induce labor at home. So tip number 1 is nipple stimulation. Now, this can come in a couple of different forms. I talked about having orgasms and sex in the first video, but nipple stimulation doesn't necessarily have to be involved in that. You can actually just stimulate your nipples when you aren't having some sort of sexual experience, and it can have the same impact. Now, with that being said, if you do want to simultaneously have nipple stimulation while you are having orgasms or having any kind of sexual experience with a partner, that is definitely something that you can do. However, you can also just manually stimulate your nipples on your own kind of throughout the day. You can use a manual like hand breast pump, or you can use an electric breast pump. Anything that's going to stimulate your nipples in that way is going to release oxytocin. And what did we learn about oxytocin in the first part of this video? Oxytocin is going to help bring on contractions. And so if we are right on the brink of almost getting into labor, encouraging more oxytocin and getting those contractions going is going to help kickstart labor. So if you pair a little bit of nipple stimulation, oxytocin, with a little bit of orgasm oxytocin, which also creates some sort of like uterine contractions when you're having orgasms, and if you happen to have a partner who has a penis, who has prostaglandin in their semen, that can soften your cervix. There are many different kind of avenues in that space to get oxytocin in our system and flowing in our blood and getting our uterus to contract. This is also a tip that you can use in order to keep contractions going. If you have contractions that have started, stimulating your nipples can keep those contractions going and actually encourage them to get stronger, closer together, and continue labor. Tip number 2 is to do the Miles circuit. I just did an entire video walking you step by step exactly how to do the Miles circuit. So if you haven't seen that, I will link it here in case you want to try it out yourself. But this is a method that was developed by another doula, Megan Miles, and this is such an effective method for getting baby's head aligned appropriately in the optimal position in our pelvis. The optimal position for baby to be in the pelvis is presentation with their head first and the back of their head facing the front of the body. And when baby is in that position, that means that their head is pushing down on the cervix. And what does that mean? It means that we are working on effacing and dilating that cervix so baby can come through and out. When baby's head is putting pressure on the cervix, it can also help to get those contractions going, hopefully releasing prostaglandins, which then cause more contractions, and the more contractions cause more prostaglandins. And we want that cycle, we want that positive feedback loop going as much as we can. So the Miles circuit gives you the chance to get, if baby's head isn't quite aligned in the right position and labor is stalling or delayed or anything like that, it'll give you the opportunity for baby's head to come up and out of the pelvis, and then give it the opportunity to kind of readjust and get their head back in the optimal position. So this is a fantastic option that you can physically do over and over again until you go into labor. Now, while you are doing the mile circuit, or while you're on your yoga ball, or doing any kind of positions where you're trying to get baby aligned, it's also really beneficial to have some sort of aromatherapy going on. I posted an entire video on my IGTV about essential oils that I like to use during labor, and if you don't follow me on Instagram yet, you can definitely go and check that out. It's on my IGTV, and I dive into all of the nitty-gritty about essential oils during labor. Tip number 3 is all about different things that you can kind of eat and get into your system that might be able to help get labor started. First and foremost is evening primrose oil. Now, this is something that a lot of midwives and herbalists will recommend, but you will definitely want to ask your specific provider to make sure it's something appropriate for you to do. And there's kind of mixed reviews about whether or not it is effective. However, evening primrose oil contains prostaglandins, which, like we've talked about before, can help to ripen and soften the cervix. You can take it orally, or you can insert it vaginally. But like I said before, definitely reach out to your provider first and foremost before doing anything like that. Another thing that you can incorporate into your diet that can help labor start are dates. Studies have shown that eating 6 to 8 dates a day starting around 36 weeks can help pregnant people have higher cervical dilation, intact membranes, and go into labor spontaneously. It also shows that those pregnant people who ate 6 to 8 dates a day had shorter first stages of labor. So the outcomes were more favorable, and there were less medical interventions such as a medical induction or augmentation. Now, my 4th tip is what I will refer to as a Hail Mary. This is when you have come to the end of the road, and maybe you are at 42 weeks and you are really trying to get natural labor started on its own so that you can avoid a medical induction. Now, I say this because it is something that is pretty uncomfortable, but it does do the trick sometimes. You will want to use this one with caution and with approval from your midwife or healthcare provider, but this is called the midwives brew, and this is a concoction put together to help stimulate contractions via the digestive tract. The main ingredient in midwives brew that can lead to labor is castor oil. Castor oil is something that, when ingested into the digestive tract, causes diarrhea, which can also lead to contractions. So because our intestines are contracting, it can kind of lead to our uterus contracting as well. And followed up with some of these other tips might be able to get labor started and then continuing. However, this can cause pretty terrible diarrhea, which can be really uncomfortable, but it's also really important to remember to hydrate, because diarrhea definitely dehydrates the body, and we need to be hydrated whenever we're in labor. I will put the full recipe right here. There are a few other things in the midwives brew recipe, so if this is something that you want to give a try, like I said, ask your provider, talk to your midwife, and then do it. And tip number 5 is clear fear that you have surrounding labor. I know this one might not seem like something that can keep you from going into labor, but when we are holding on to fear, we're holding on to tension. And when we hold on to tension, we can sometimes hold on to anxiety. We stay in that fight or flight response, which, as we learned from part 1 of this video, releases adrenaline. And we are trying to eliminate adrenaline during this phase. We need adrenaline at the end of labor, but at the beginning, we don't want adrenaline. We want oxytocin, we want prostaglandins, we want all those yummy hormones, and we don't want adrenaline at the beginning stages of labor. Eliminating fear in labor is obviously a big statement. So how do you do that when you are 38, 39, 40 weeks pregnant? There are so many options for you, and just by watching a video like this, you are one step closer to eliminating that fear. But if you haven't done it yet, look for a doula, hire a doula. Doulas are so fantastic in guiding you through birth and pregnancy and labor in general. There is so much knowledge there that can help you eliminate fear. Talk about it out loud. Say the fears that you have, write them down, and kind of dive into them. See what it is that's holding you back from feeling totally confident in what those fears look like. Because the more you know about those fears, the more you can eliminate them. So if you're afraid that you're gonna have a C-section, or if you're afraid that you are gonna have to have a medical induction, or if you're afraid that you're gonna tear, write those fears down and start to learn more about about how you can avoid those things, or things that you can do to better your chances of like stacking the odds in your favor of not having to experience that. And once you're able to work through those things, it might be able to eliminate those fears and get that adrenaline out of your system. Knowledge is power, and that is something that will help you work through those fears that you might be holding on to. But that does it for today's video, you guys. I hope you enjoyed these tips and that they are helpful for you in trying to induce labor on your own. If you are new to my channel, thank you so much for coming and watching. Definitely consider subscribing. I would love to have you as a part of this empowering community, and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. It helps me out so much, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.